All right, so today we're going to be looking at something that, maybe isn't the first thing you think about when you're getting ready to apply for a job, but it can actually make a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the font you use on your resume.
Yeah.
We're diving into an article called Best Fonts for Resume. Enhance your CV with the right typography.
Okay.
It was published pretty recently on December 5th of this year.
All right.
And, at first glance, you might think, really? Fonts? Does it really matter that much? But it turns out,
Oh, it does.
yeah, it's not just about aesthetics. It's about making sure your resume is easy to read,
Yeah.
makes a good first impression,
Right.
and maybe most importantly, it can really get through those applicant tracking systems, or ATS,
Right.
that so many companies use these days.
Exactly. Yeah. You got to think of it this way. Your resume is often the first impression you make on a potential employer.
Mm-hmm.
And just like with any first impression, those initial visual cues matter, right? So the font you choose can actually kind of subtly communicate things like your personality, your attention to detail, and even how well you understand the norms of the industry that you're trying to get into.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not just about picking something that, I think looks cool or pretty. There's actually some real strategy involved here.
There is, absolutely.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the article kind of dives right in and gives
Yeah.
us these 3 key reasons why font choice matters.
Right.
And they are readability, first impressions, and ATS compatibility.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with readability.
Yeah.
Seems pretty straightforward.
It is, but it's often overlooked, I think.
Yeah.
A clean, easy-to-read font makes sure that the person who's looking at your resume, the hiring manager, can quickly scan it and grasp your qualifications without, straining their eyes or, getting bored.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want it to be as easy as possible.
Oh, yeah, exactly. In the fast-paced world of hiring, you just want to make sure your resume is as, inviting and digestible as possible.
Yeah, totally. You don't want somebody to be struggling to, decipher some fancy cursive font
Exactly.
when they've got a stack of resumes to go through.
Certainly, yeah.
Okay, that makes total sense.
So let's move on to first impressions.
Okay.
This is where the psychology of fonts comes in.
Okay.
Different fonts kind of evoke different feelings and associations.
Right.
So for instance, using Times New Roman, which is a classic serif font, it might kind of signal that you're traditional, reliable, maybe even a bit, old school.
Yeah.
Which could be a great fit for certain industries, but not for others.
Right. So it's almost like choosing the right outfit for a job interview. Right?
Yes, exactly.
You want something that's appropriate for the occasion and kind of presents you in the best possible light.
Totally. Yeah, that's a great analogy. Imagine using a font like Helvetica, which is, very clean, modern sans serif font.
Right.
So this suggests that you're contemporary, forward-thinking, maybe even a little minimalist in your approach.
Okay, so just hearing those two, I'm like, wow, I really do need to think about this more than I maybe have in the past.
Absolutely.
What about those ATS systems?
Yeah.
Why are they so picky about fonts?
Well, so ATS software is designed to scan resumes for keywords and relevant experience. They basically act as gatekeepers, right?
Right.
Helping recruiters sift through, potentially hundreds of applications.
Right.
The problem is that some fonts, especially those with unique designs or unusual characters, can really trip up these systems.
Okay.
The software might not be able to accurately read or interpret the text, which could lead to your resume being automatically rejected before a human even sees it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's the worst case scenario.
It is. It is.
Yeah. So we need to find a font that looks good,
Yeah.
conveys the right message, and doesn't freak out the robots.
Exactly.
Okay, sounds like kind of a tall order.
It can be, but luckily there are plenty of fonts that kind of check all the boxes.
Okay, good.
And that's what we're going to unpack next. The article's top 10 best fonts list.
All right, hit me with it. What are the top picks?
Okay, so instead of diving into each font individually, I think it's helpful to group them into categories.
Yeah.
So we have serif fonts, which have those little decorative feet at the ends of the letters.
Yeah.
And then we have sans serif fonts, which lack those flourishes and tend to look cleaner and more modern.
Okay, yeah, I'm familiar with that distinction.
Okay.
So which ones fall into each category?
All right, so in the serif category, the article recommends Times New Roman, Georgia, Garamond, Cambria, and Book Antiqua.
Okay.
So these fonts are generally seen as more traditional and formal, which makes them really suitable for industries like finance, law, or government.
Okay.
However, they can also work well for other fields, if you're going for that classic, elegant look.
Right. So even within, like, the serif category, there's these nuances.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about the sans serif options?
Right. For sans serif, we have Calibri, Arial, Helvetica, Verdana, and Tahoma.
Okay.
So these fonts are generally perceived as more like modern and minimalist, which makes them popular choices for industries like tech, design, or marketing.
Yep.
But again, just like with the serif fonts, they can be used across various industries depending on the overall tone that you're trying to achieve.
Okay, so I need to consider both the category
Yes.
and then the specific font within that category.
Exactly.
Okay, so what makes these 10 fonts stand out from all the others?
Well, each of these fonts has its own unique personality and characteristics,
Mm-hmm.
but what they all share is a high level of readability,
Mm-hmm.
professional appeal, and wide availability.
Oh,
Most of them come pre-installed on Windows and Mac OS.
oh, that's great. Yeah.
You don't even have to go hunting for them.
Yeah, super accessible. Do
Exactly.
you have any specific examples of how these are used in different industries?
Yeah, absolutely. So, for instance, if you're applying for a design-focused role, you might lean towards Helvetica or Arial, which are known for their clean, modern aesthetic.
Right.
Whereas if you're aiming for a more traditional field like law or finance, Times New Roman or Georgia might be more appropriate.
Gotcha.
And then, if you're in a field like tech where innovation is key, Calibri or Verdana could help convey that sense of forward thinking.
Okay, yeah, this is starting to click for me.
Yeah.
It's about matching the font to the industry and the message you want to send.
Exactly.
But,
Yeah.
are there any other options besides these 10? I mean, what if I want to, branch out a little bit?
Of course. Yeah. And that's a great point because there's a whole world of free and open source fonts out there
Right.
that can be just as effective,
Yeah.
visually appealing, and professional as paid options.
And free is always good.
Always good, exactly. Plus, they give you a wider range of choices
Okay.
to really express your personal style.
All right. Well, I'm excited to hear about these free font options. Let's dive into those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you mentioned that there's all these free font options out there.
Yeah.
And obviously free is always good. So what are some of the ones that the article highlights?
Okay, so there are a bunch of real gems in the free font world that deserve attention.
Oh.
One of my personal favorites is Open Sans.
Okay.
It's a really clean, modern sans serif font
Okay.
that's incredibly versatile. You can use it for both headings and body text.
Right.
And it comes in a wide range of weights and styles.
Okay.
So it gives you a lot of flexibility to customize your resume's look.
I like the sound of that. Options are always good.
Absolutely.
Open Sans. I'm going to write that down.
Okay.
So what else is on the list?
Another great choice is Roboto.
Okay.
This one's known for being very versatile and highly readable, which makes it suitable for both print and digital resumes.
Okay.
It was actually developed by Google.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they designed it to be really clear and legible on a variety of screens and devices.
Oh, that's smart.
So, it ensures that your resume looks sharp no matter how it's viewed.
That's really important these days,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Because you don't know if somebody's going to be looking at it on their phone or on their computer.
Right, exactly.
So is Roboto kind of like the free version of Georgia?
Yes. Good catch.
We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
They're both known for being readable in both print and on screen.
Exactly. Yeah, they both prioritize readability.
Okay.
Across different mediums.
Okay.
They're the workhorses of the font world, very reliable,
I like it.
adaptable.
Okay, what's next?
Next up, we have Lato,
Okay.
a sans serif font that kind of strikes a balance between professionalism and friendliness.
A friendly font.
I know, right?
I've never really thought about fonts having personality
Yeah.
before this whole deep dive, but now I'm kind of fascinated by it.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
So what makes a font friendly?
It often comes down to subtle details, like the roundness of the letters or the overall proportions of the font. So Lato, for example, has slightly softer, more approachable features compared to some of the more geometric, rigid sans serif fonts out there.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I'm kind of realizing now how much intention goes into designing these fonts?
There's so much thought that goes into it.
Yeah, it's like this whole secret language we're decoding.
It is. Typography is about so much more than just like picking letters.
Yeah.
It's about using those letters to communicate a feeling, an attitude, a brand, all of that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to our list of free fonts here.
Yes.
What else is there?
Okay, so we have Montserrat,
Okay.
a modern geometric sans serif font that works beautifully for both headings and body text.
Okay.
It's a popular choice for those seeking a kind of sleek, contemporary aesthetic, and it can add a touch of sophistication to your resume.
Oh, sophisticated.
Right.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
What's the last one?
Okay, last but not least, we have Source Sans Pro.
Okay.
This font was actually designed for like user interfaces, but it also translates beautifully to resumes.
Okay.
It's elegant, clear, readable, and it has that like desirable balance of professionalism and approachability that we've been talking about.
So many good options.
You know, right.
And they're all free.
Yeah.
I love
See? Me too.
Honestly, though, I'm a little overwhelmed by all these choices.
That's understandable.
Like, how do I even begin to narrow it down?
Yeah.
Is there like a cheat sheet or something?
Yeah, for sure.
Some guiding principles?
Yeah, so the article actually offers some helpful advice on like key factors to consider when making your decision. It goes beyond like just personal preference.
Right.
And it emphasizes the importance of choosing a font that is readable, professional, ATS compatible, and consistent with your overall resume design.
Okay. That does help to like break it down a little bit.
Yeah.
But can you elaborate on what those actually mean in practice?
Yeah.
Like, how do I know if a font is readable enough?
Okay, so readability basically means making sure that the font is easy on the eyes. It doesn't require like any extra effort to decipher.
Yeah.
So think about the hiring manager, right? Who's quickly scanning your resume. You want to make sure that their eyes don't get like tired or frustrated trying to read what you've written. That makes sense.
That means avoiding anything too stylized or decorative. And fonts with like overly thin strokes can also be a readability nightmare, especially at smaller sizes.
Yeah, okay, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
What about the professionalism factor?
Yeah.
How do you gauge that?
So it is somewhat subjective, but a good rule of thumb is to consider like the industry you're applying to.
Right.
And the company's overall culture. So like for traditional fields like finance or law, it's generally best to stick with classic, timeless fonts, like Times New Roman or Georgia.
Right.
But for more creative industries, like marketing or design, you have a little more leeway to experiment with modern fonts, like Lotto or Montserrat.
So it's all about reading the room, so to speak.
Yes, exactly. Choosing a font that like aligns with the expectations and vibe of the industry or company.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've talked about ATS compatibility
a couple of times already, but it's so important. I just want to like really drive that home.
Yes.
Because I want my resume to get past the robots and into the hands of a human.
Yeah, exactly.
So can you just remind me again what to keep in mind for that?
Yeah, so sticking to like standard widely recognized fonts is the safest bet. Uncommon or overly decorative fonts can sometimes cause problems for these systems. They might be misread or even like completely ignored.
Oh, wow.
Which could mean your resume gets tossed aside before it even has a chance.
Okay, so stick to the well-known fonts.
Yes.
Got it. And the last factor was consistency, right?
Yes. Consistency is key for creating a like polished and professional look.
Okay.
So use the same font family throughout your entire resume, including headings, body text, and any additional sections.
Got it.
You don't want to mix and match different fonts.
Right.
Because that can create a visually jarring and frankly unprofessional impression.
Right. So choose wisely.
Yes.
Stick with it. Make it ATS-friendly.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like I'm really starting to master this art of resume font selection.
You are. You're getting it.
But what about like all the other formatting stuff? Like font choice is just one piece of the puzzle, right?
It is. Choosing the right font is a great start. But you also want to make sure your resume is visually appealing and easy to navigate. And that's where formatting best practices come in.
Okay.
And luckily, the article has some excellent tips
Good.
for optimizing your resume's visual impact. So let's get into those.
Awesome. Let's do it. All right, so we've talked about choosing the right font.
Right.
We even found some amazing free options. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of formatting.
Right.
Like, making sure that our resume is visually appealing.
Yes.
The article has this whole section on it. What are some of the key takeaways?
Well, one of the first things it emphasizes is font size.
Okay.
Like you want to find that sweet spot where the text is large enough to be easily readable,
Yeah.
but not so large that it makes your resume look like cramped or childish.
Right. Yeah, okay. So what's the recommended range?
So they suggest using 10 to 12 points for the main body text and slightly larger, like 12 to 14 points for your headings.
So bigger headings to help those sections stand out.
Exactly.
What about line spacing?
Yeah, line spacing is crucial for readability, too.
Okay.
You want to give your text some room to breathe, but you don't want to waste valuable space on a resume.
Right, yeah.
So the article recommends using single or 1.15 spacing, which strikes a good balance between, readability and conciseness.
Okay, so no double spacing like we used to do in, high school?
Right,
Or 1.15 it is.
Yeah.
What about bold and italics?
Yeah.
Are those okay to use on a resume?
They can be when used strategically.
Okay.
So bolding is great for headings to create a visual hierarchy and draw the reader's eye to the most important information.
Right.
Italics can be used for emphasis.
Okay.
But don't overdo it.
Yeah.
Too much bolding or italicizing can make your resume look kind of cluttered and unprofessional.
Right. A light touch.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about margins?
Okay, so for margins,
Yeah.
they recommend keeping them between 0.5 to 1 inch.
Okay.
This creates a nice frame for your text without making it look, too sparse or too crammed.
Margins, check.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm becoming a resume formatting guru over here.
You are. You're doing great.
What about fonts to avoid?
Oh, yeah.
I'm kind of curious about this one.
Yeah.
Because the article has a section on fonts that, can actually hurt your chances
They can.
of getting an interview.
Yeah.
I have a feeling Comic Sans might be on that list.
Comic Sans is definitely on the list, yes.
Yeah, I always thought that was a little
childish.
too casual.
Yeah.
It's like wearing a t-shirt to a job interview.
Yeah, exactly. Not a good look.
Not a good look.
What other fonts are on the naughty list?
Okay, so another one is Courier New.
Okay.
It's a monospaced font.
Okay.
Meaning every letter takes up the same amount of space.
Right.
Which gives it a very distinct look. Kind of reminiscent of old typewriters.
Yeah, it has that retro vibe.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
It can work for certain design choices, but on a resume, it just comes across as outdated and can be tough to read.
Right.
In large blocks of text.
Okay, Courier New, got it. What else?
They also cautioned against using papyrus,
Oh, yes.
impact, and any excessively decorative or script fonts.
Okay.
So these can all be difficult to read.
Right.
They often clash with that professional tone you're aiming for. And they can sometimes cause problems with ATS software.
Right. Okay, so clarity.
Yes.
Readability. Professionalism.
No need to get too fancy.
Keep it simple.
Yeah. Okay, so what other tips does the article offer for kind of polishing up our resumes?
Okay, so one really important tip is to print a test copy of your resume.
Oh, yeah.
Before sending it out.
Okay.
This allows you to catch any formatting errors that might not be visible on your computer screen.
Right.
And it ensures that your resume looks just as good on paper as it does digitally.
That's a great point, because I've definitely had that happen before where I'm like, oh, this looks perfect. And then I print it and I'm like, oh, no.
And then it's all messed up.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it happens.
Okay, so print a test copy. Got it. Anything else?
And the last tip is to save and send your resume as a PDF file.
Okay, why is that important?
Saving it as a PDF preserves the formatting across different devices and operating systems.
Oh, okay.
So this means your resume will look exactly as you intended it to.
Right.
No matter who's viewing it. It prevents any unwanted font substitutions or layout changes that can sometimes happen when you open a document, in a different program or on a different computer.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's like you're sending a snapshot of your resume.
Yeah.
Exactly as you designed it.
Exactly.
I feel like I've learned so much from this deep dive.
I hope so.
I never realized how many subtle but important things go into this.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about.
Yeah, like choosing the right fonts and formatting a resume.
Yeah, it's more than just like throwing some words on a page.
Right.
It's
Again,
about presentation. It's about making sure that your qualifications
yeah.
are showcased in the best possible light.
Okay, so to recap, for our listeners out there who are getting ready for their job search, what are the key takeaways from our deep dive into the world of resume fonts?
The big takeaway is that font choice is more than just an aesthetic decision.
Oh.
It's a strategic one.
Mm-hmm.
The fonts you choose for your resume communicate a message. And that message can influence how recruiters perceive you and your qualifications.
Yeah, so we need to be intentional
Yes,
and thoughtful
exactly.
with our font choices.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so what's like the one piece of advice you would give to our listeners as they embark on their job hunt?
Now that you know the best fonts and the formatting tips to make your resume shine, take some time to reflect on your personal brand and the message you want to convey.
Okay.
Choose a font that aligns with your skills, your experience, and the industry you're targeting.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's not about blindly following rules.
Right.
It's about using those rules to create something that really represents you in
Exactly.
the best possible light.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to have a little fun with it.
Yeah.
Like, choosing fonts and playing around with formatting can be a creative process.
It can be.
Yeah.
So enjoy exploring the different options.
Mm-hmm.
Find what feels right for you.
Exactly.
Excellent advice. And if you want to dive even deeper into this topic, be sure to check out the full article, Best Fonts for Resume. Enhance your CV with the right typography.
Yes, it's a great resource.
It's got a ton of helpful tips, examples, and even links to download all those free fonts we talked about.
Yeah, everything you need.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the fascinating world of resume fonts.
Yes, it does.
We hope you found it insightful and are now feeling empowered to create a resume that truly stands out from the crowd.
I hope so.
Best of luck with your job search, everyone.
Yes, good luck.
And remember, the right font can make all the difference.
It can.
Until next time, happy font hunting.
Happy font hunting.